Personal game of skilled designers, we can engrave intricate designs on virtually any material. Whether it's a special message, a company logo, or a custom design, Romika Laser Engraving will help you make your mark. And the best part, our prices are affordable and our turnaround time is quick.
I couldn't be happier with the work Romika Laser Engraving did for me. The engraving on my product was precise and exactly what I wanted.
So don't wait any longer to add a personal touch to your products. Call Romika Laser Engraving and Custom Designs today at 817-400-4040 or visit our website at romikadesigns.com. We look forward to helping you make your mark.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395.
Hey, travelers, do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call, because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.
855-325-1820. 855-325-1820. That's 855-325-1820.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395.
Welcome to the Texas Transparency Project. I did not have my paperwork ready, so give me 1 second here. So, good evening, Johnson County. Welcome to this week's episode of the Texas Transparency Project. Texas Transparency Project airs most Thursdays at 5 p.m. here exclusively on JoCo Community Radio. JoCo Community Radio focuses on all the ins and outs of Johnson County, Texas. JoCo Community Radio has many shows and airs 24 hours a day. You can visit the JoCo Community Radio Facebook page to watch shows live or to see replays. Also, you can go to www.JoCo Community Radio, where Apple and Android apps are available. Tune in to get the ins and outs of Johnson County, Texas, and do what we can to shed. Or here at the Transparency Project, we focus on 3 relevant topics applicable to residents of Johnson County and do what we can to shed light on how they affect all of us. The 3 topics that we focus on are federal and state politics when they're applicable to us here in Johnson County, Texas local municipal politics, mainly county and city councils, and Texas school politics, specifically school districts, school boards, and school bonds. Regarding school districts, resources, and for help navigating issues with local ISDs, we rely heavily on families engaged for effective education. They spend a lot of time in Austin going over legislation with the State Board of Education and the Education Committee and various legislators. Who is Families Engaged for Effective Education, and why do we rely on them? Well, their mission or their goal of Families Engaged is to educate parents, citizens, and lawmakers on possible damage of legislation which undermines the family, our public education system, and our constitutional republic. They have a local chapter here in Johnson County and can be reached through their website at www.familiesengaged.org and on Facebook at Families Engaged for Effective Education. Today and through the primary on March 5th, we'll be hosting candidates, Mr. Timothy Good for JOCO DA, Texas House District 58, Rep. Dwayne Burns, and Mr. Lyndon Laird, a candidate for Texas HD 58. After March 5th primary election, all focus will pivot to the May 7th spring election, city councils, school boards, and school bonds. For our episode introduction tonight, we're highlighting state politics, specifically the Texas House of Representatives 58th District. The Texas Transparency Project is honored to have a candidate, Miss Helen Kerwin, who is one of the 3 candidates for the Texas House of Representatives 58th District. Texas House 58th includes Crescent, Burleson, and parts of South Mansfield on the north side, Venus, Alvarado, and Grandview on the east side, Glen Rose and Godley on the west side, Rio Vista to the south, with Joshua, Keene, and Cleburne smack dab in the middle. Ms. Kerwin is running against 2 others, incumbent and current House District 58 Representative Dwayne Burns and Mr. Lyndon Laird. Representative Burns will be a guest here on the Texas Transparency Project on February 15th and Mr. Laird on February 22nd. All 3 candidates should be commended for agreeing to come on the Texas Transparency Project. We and the voters appreciate it. Stump speeches and Q&As are the norm. Sitting down for an extended live interview is another animal, much more difficult, and we're lucky here in Texas's 58th House District to have candidates who are courageous and accommodating enough to agree. We are close to a month away from the March 5th primary election and less than 3 weeks away from early voting. Key voting dates are February 5th. That's the last day to register to vote. So if you haven't registered to vote yet or have any friends or family that haven't, please encourage them to go register to vote. February 20th through March 1st is early voting. March 5th is election day. That's the last day to vote. So back to tonight's guest, Miss Helen Kerwin. She's a mother of 3, an entrepreneur, former mayor, county commissioner, 4-H superintendent, FFA horse judging coach, and more. Welcome, Ms. Kerwin, to the Texas Transparency Project. We're knee-deep in the March 5th primary, but before we get down to business, tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to the decision to jump into state politics.
Well, thank you, Greg, for having me. This is so exciting. I've never been on the radio or TV before, so thank you so much. I am from Glen Rose, and I've been there almost 50 years. We found the old Glen Hotel downtown, and we decided to restore it, and we moved in and sold it. And after 5 years, we got a divorce, and I became a single mom, and which ended up actually being the best thing all around, because I moved to the Glen Rose Square, where I opened up a flower shop. And for the next 15 years, I raised my 3 daughters as a single parent in Glen Rose. And then when they went off to college, I turned our homestead into a bed and breakfast, and it is now today 16 units. We build a chapel, we do church retreats and weddings and family reunions. It's called Country Woods Inn. So I have come up through the small business sector, and it is one of the reasons that I loved getting into politics back in Glen Rose many years ago when I ran for mayor and commissioner. And what a great experience to be able to go to work every day and have the resources to be able to make changes, create and craft things for your community, and watch the wonderful positive impact that it had. So now I'm ready to jump back in.
Awesome. And I've seen you out at many events, and you normally are wearing this gorgeous red coat, but you got a Fort Worth Stock Show rodeo today. You went to the Fort Worth Stock Show. How was that?
Oh my goodness. I know my Republican red I wear everywhere. Well, I've been at the stock show all day. I have 2 granddaughters that were showing Hereford steers.
Okay.
One of them made the top 10. So
Congratulations.
we get to go back on Saturday for the big auction, which I think is one of the best Texas traditions. of all.
Awesome.
So that's why I have my stock show and rodeo sweatshirt on. I didn't have time to put my red Republican blazer on.
Well, nice to see you represent a great local venue here. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you.
So we here at the Texas Transparency Project truly believe that voter education and candidate outreach is imperative to preserving our republic. You as a candidate are doing your job, and the voters need to do their job. That begins with education on the issues and the candidates. Where can voters go online to learn more about you and your platform, your website, social media? Where can they go to learn about Miss Helen Kerwin?
Well, that would be wonderful. My website is helenkerwin.com, and I am on Twitter, and I'm on the Johnson County Republican Facebook pages.
Are those all helenkerwin.com, or are there different addresses for each one?
I think they're different addresses.
Okay,
so you can get
links will be on your website.
Links will be on the website. Updates will be on the website. You can subscribe.
Okay.
And the different Republican Facebook pages, Somerville County and Johnson County.
Awesome. So here again, we want to commend you for your lifelong community service and applaud you for being civically engaged. Most of these positions do not pay well and constrain time. So again, thank you for your many years of service to Johnson County, and we really appreciate that. But tonight we're going to talk about your platform running for Texas House District 58. And this is taken directly from your campaign material. And we're going to dive into some of these in depth later. But briefly, your platform is secure the border, educational freedom, and election integrity. So let's start with securing the border. Tell us why that's important to you and your thoughts on that.
Well, I, of course, saw Eagle Pass. And I thought, finally, on the nightly news, our crisis at the border is reaching national media. You know, they haven't heard much about it over the years. And I was so inspired. I thought that I'd really need to jump in and do all I can to help in Austin to secure and seal our Texas border. And then I heard about Operation Lone Star, did a little research on that. And that's when I learned about our governor, Greg Abbott, single-handedly taking on not only our border, but really all of America. He is having to do that because of DC and Biden not doing what is the number one job description for the president, is to defend our borders.
Absolutely.
And if he's not doing it, then we have a sovereign right to do it, whatever it takes. I'm a firm believer in that. I would support that any way I can. I believe we have to finish the wall. We need to start not catch and release. We need to start catch and deporting them. We need to build up our border force, our border patrol. We need to hire thousands of people, and we need to let them do their jobs.
Absolutely.
I am terrified at not only the immigration, because I know the impact that has on us as well as America, where we are providing food, shelter, clothing, healthcare, and education, and it can be 10 years before their court date. I'm also terrified about the fentanyl. El Paso's percentage of increase in 1 year is 936%.
That's outrageous.
450,000 deaths, single doses. It's just outrageous. And then, of course, the terrorism. Who are the terrorists that are crossing over? It would just take 2 or 3 coming across our border to create a cell.
Less than 20 did 9/11. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So no, you're on the right track on that. There's no question about it. What about briefly educational freedom? And we're going to dive into these later.
Okay. Well, I believe in empowering the parents. I believe that families need to be part of the decision-making process in picking the pathway for their children to create digital opportunities. My 3 daughters went through Glen Rose Public Schools K through 12, very successful today. My oldest daughter, Brooke, was in Trump's White House as the domestic policy advisor. And my twin daughters, one is now the principal at the intermediate school in Glen Rose, and my third daughter is a professor at TCU in the business graduate school. So they all 3 have thrived in the public school system. I support any accredited school, public, private, charter, homeschool. I support all of them, but I do think that the parents have a right to choose which one they want their children to go to.
Okay. And election integrity. That's your third big topic on your platform, on your website. So
Yes.
election integrity. What can you tell us about
I
that?
believe every Texan, every eligible Texan needs to know that their vote is secure. And I think we need to protect the ballot box. I would love to see a national holiday for voting. It can be done in person. I would fully support that.
So the ballot boxes, real quick. You're referring to the drop boxes,
Mhm.
the unmonitored drop
Mhm.
boxes that were so prevalent coming out of COVID with Biden Trump elections. Is that
Oh, in
correct?
Georgia.
And Georgia too. Yeah.
Exactly.
All the nation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And I really, really think it's important that we enact not only civil but criminal penalties for fraudulent voting. We've got to get serious about it.
Absolutely. It's out of control, and
Out of control.
yeah, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go down some of your platform in more detail here. I have some questions for you.
Mhm.
So we're gonna start with securing the border. So you brought up Eagle Pass, and all eyes nationally are on Eagle Pass, Texas. It's
Mhm.
roughly 140 miles from San Antonio. It's on the border in the southwest part of Texas. Only the Rio Grande River separates Eagle Pass from Piedra Negras, Mexico. What has been going on in Eagle Pass between the Texas National Guard, and how does this affect us in Johnson County? So what's going on there? You alluded to it, but for those that aren't
Yeah.
familiar with it, what's going on in Eagle Pass?
Well, our Texas, and we have the right, again, the sovereign right to defend our border. So the feds began to remove the razor wire and allow the immigration to cross the Rio Grande. And of course, Operation Lone Star, we have to put the wire back. We have to take Shelby Park back. We have to control our border.
So Shelby Park is part of a big golf course, pretty much in the
Mhm.
middle of town. I think it's 2.5 to 2.75 mile swath,
Mhm.
and that's the focal point for
That's
this,
the
correct?
focal
Okay.
point. Yes, and that's where the whole razor wire, which was set up, and doing I think, a very good job of protecting and sealing the border. So
Well, and they've had in other states, or maybe it was Texas, but they've had where they've actually welded gates open, CBP, Border Patrol, where they've opened gates and welded them open so
Yeah.
they couldn't be closed. So
Yeah.
there's a definite disconnect here.
it's outrageous. It's outrageous, and good for Governor Abbott for pursuing. And you know what I think? I think when this is all done and we are successful, which I think we will be, I think that we should ask DC to reimburse us, the state of Texas.
Well, he
for
sent him
having to
some.
do
He
this.
sent him some bills. Let's see if they
but
pay
I
him.
think-
Yeah.
yeah, we need to pursue
We'll see
that.
it. So no, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
If they're not doing their job, yeah, there's no reason
Yeah.
we should use Texas resources and money to do their job. So, if elected as a Texas House of Representative members, what can Johnson Countyans expect from you, and how will you navigate this complex issue? What can you bring to the fight other than support? He seems got plenty of support. What can you bring to this fight, or what ideas do you have? Do you have to expand it?
To expand.
What's going on in Eagle Pass and Operation Lone Star? Do you think it should be bigger, more?
Yes,
Okay.
I think it should be. I think we have the resources in Texas. We're the eighth largest economy in the world. I think this is our number one priority right now. We've been asleep at the wheel, and we need to get tough. And that's why we need to get conservative voting in Austin. We've just got so much to do as far as our conservative belief in the border. And we need to, I think, tremendously beef up Border Patrol. Like I said, let them do their jobs. As far as protecting Johnson County, that, of course, will contribute to a better protection if we can seal it off, get it under control. We have so many people in Texas and in all of America that are homeless. We all see the tents. Let's get our own taken care of first, and then we can readdress the border issue down the road. But
Well,
right
and-
now, it's got to stop. It's an invasion.
Sure. And you brought up fentanyl earlier. That's a big problem in Johnson County. The DA's race is focusing a lot on drugs. It's one of District Attorney Dale Hanna's big issue that he's most proud of.
Yeah.
And so that's a big problem too.
And rightly so.
And yeah,
And rightly so.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. There's a lot of push for those that are aware of the fentanyl problem. There's a lot of resources out there to get Narcan, naloxone. It's a opiate antagonist, and it's a nasal spray. and you can get this all over the place. It should be in schools and police departments. It's super easy, and it can save a lot of lives.
And I think we need to tap into the resources where we can make that available. all through
Absolutely.
the county. Not
Absolutely.
only just the border issue, but the fentanyl reaching us, of course.
Absolutely. So on a more macro level, the numbers of illegals that have been allowed to flow into Texas and America under the Biden administration, they're immeasurable. There's no doubt bold, decisive action. Long term, thinking beyond the securing the border.
Mhm.
What solutions can Johnson County expect from Helen Kerwin? So if it takes us a couple of years to secure this border, we've got all these people here. What are you thinking in regards
Well,
to longer term
I think
solutions?
it's very important. Right now, we have 2.5 million permanent immigrants taking residence in our state, 10 million in the country, 1.7 gotaways. We don't even know where they're living. I think we have to look at legislation where they are not going to increase our budget to the point that all Texans are affected by taxes. We are feeding them, we are clothing them, we are giving them shelter, we are giving them health care. Our 254 counties in Texas, our emergency rooms have become their private doctors. And by law, they cannot turn them away. So
So let's touch on that real quick.
Mhm.
So most people will go to an urgent care, their primary care, or a specialist. Illegals that don't have insurance, they're forced to go to the emergency rooms.
Exactly.
And the emergency rooms can't deny them.
They cannot for any reason. And so what has happened, like I said, our ERs in Texas are turning into private doctors' offices for the illegals, which is making health care for our Texans unavailable to many of them.
And
or compromised.
astronomically expensive.
And the cost,
waiting,
of course. Yeah.
So-
And then we're educating them. We're educating them too. So the cost is staggering. So I think that one thing that I would like to do is, and if I can author a bill or bills, craft legislation to get this under control. Maybe the educational opportunities need to be controlled. Maybe.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Free education for illegals. It sounds good. Nobody wants to not see somebody get educated, but this is a massive, massive burden on Texans. It really
Especially
is.
now, when they cross the border, they could be 10 years before they have a court date.
Sure.
So they're out of high school.
Yeah.
Or more or less. So
Yeah, it's a problem when there's
Yeah.
this. If you're doing everything you can to secure the border, but just letting them free flow in, it's a big problem, and that's the majority of property taxes.
and the
we pay against
education
the
too.
school.
We definitely need to look at that.
Absolutely.
How do we educate them?
Yeah.
Without compromising our Texans.
Sure.
It's a big issue with me.
So, and we're going to talk about education later here in the second segment. So,
Okay.
you brought up Project Lone Star,
Mhm.
and you said you're for an expansion of it.
Mhm.
So, for those that aren't familiar with Project Lone Star, you can go to www or https://gov.texas.gov/Operation Lone Star. Just Google Operation Lone Star. And what I found awesome about this is border transportation funding. So they're actually receiving donations to do some of this. I thought that's brilliant.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, if you got a little bit of extra coin laying around,
Yeah.
from the property tax relief that we just got from the state, you can go here. So border transportation funding,
Mhm.
they've received $460,000 in donations. Border security funding. So that's to move the immigrants out of Texas.
Mhm.
To secure the border, 102, and that's more of a more recent issue because of the Eagle Pass is bringing highlight on that. But here's what I thought was awesome: the border wall funding donations is at $55 million.
Yeah. They're ready to start.
Yeah, no, so
Ready to start.
Yeah,
So
so
let's
if
go.
you feel inclined to donate money to this,
Yeah.
they're taking donations,
And
and
that's another thing. I am in full support of transporting them to the cities. I think that Governor Abbott has been spectacular in doing that.
transporting who and what to the
the
city?
immigrants to
Oh,
the,
okay,
to the cities,
okay.
to the sanctuary cities. I think that is just and good for him.
So we're going to talk about the busing policy here in a minute. You're talking about the
Oh,
busing policy.
I'm ahead of you.
Okay, no,
I
no,
get
it's-
excited about this.
No, it's fine. I don't want people to construe that you're saying to Texas cities. You're talking about
no.
moving them
Oh,
out of state. Yeah,
Texas.
let's
yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
let's-
that's been one of his best call to
Sure.
actions.
I wish he would do more. And
Mhm.
absolutely. And I think DeSantis is doing some too, or he's flying them or something. But I don't pay his,
DeSantis.
yeah, he's doing great.
Wonderful
He's doing great.
courageous. Did you see the Denver mayor interview?
No.
Oh my gosh. Every hotel room in Denver is full with immigrants. Their budget is out of control. It was on the news last night, and it terrified me. Is that going to come to a Texas city pretty soon?
Wow.
So we have got to stop it.
That's incredible. That's just. I used to live in Denver, and they get some problems there.
Yeah, they do.
So before we get to our break here in a few minutes, and we talked about this a little bit. Property taxes are a big issue here. We're gonna deep dive that here in a minute. But how much more can our public education system support? So many ISDs are already at a breaking point with sky high property taxes. With the immigrant issue, and No Child Left Behind, and the resources that are getting diverted to that, we have teacher shortages. What is a solution, and how do we mitigate that with the immigrant with
the immigrant population? And Texas, of course, by law, we have to educate everyone that comes to our schools. And again, that might be something I want to look into in Austin, looking at legislation to get that under control so that our own communities and our own Texans are not negatively impacted by that.
Sure.
I don't know enough yet. I'm not in Austin, but that would be.
And that's fair enough. And thank you for admitting that, and not just
cool.
bloviating. I mean, because people don't know everything, and it's nice to hear. A lot of you guys in this race have said a few times, I need to look more into that. And that's appreciated. It really is.
Wow. You're welcome. Thank you. But I think that, and I support all schools if they're accredited, and maybe we need to look into a new type of education, which does focus on the basics for the immigrants, which is language, citizenship, etc., so that they are not impacting our classrooms every day negatively. And that might be a way.
I think the biggest answer is secure the border,
right?
And
of course.
And do institute a remain in Mexico policy. There's a lot of ways to mitigate the influx, but you have so many here now. It's a problem. I bet a lot of them aren't in school yet, that's what worries me, is that there's a lot that aren't in school yet. And what are we really looking at once the dust settles?
That's what I'm worried about. When they do enter school, then how is that going to compromise the bar of excellence that we have in our classrooms right now? How are those wonderful teachers going to have to begin to reteach? Because we're going to have that population affecting the quality in the classroom. So that is definitely a big issue.
So we got about a minute and a half till our first break here, or our only break. But we talked a little bit about your busing policy. So you are 100% supportive of bus, get them out. And for those that want a little more, if they're not familiar with the busing policy, so there's cities all over the country that brandish themselves as sanctuary cities, where if illegal migrants are in these cities, there is no enforcement, and they welcome them. They offer social services to them. A lot of them want them to be able to vote. If they want them so bad, why would we want to deny them the opportunity to have them in their cities? So
well said. Well said.
Well, I mean,
oh my gosh. Well, basically the initial premise is that why are we the single state that is absorbing all of the consequences of illegal immigration? We're the United States. We have 50 states, whether they are sanctuary or not, they need to share in the burden of the illegal immigration problem today. And the sanctuary cities, of course, I am all in favor of busing them there. Again, I think Governor Abbott has done an amazing job doing that. And I hope he continues to do it.
More.
More.
Get trains, everything.
I mean, it's just shocking what's happening in our state with this problem.
So we're getting ready to go to our first break. What's your website again?
HelenKerwin.com.
Got till the 5th of February to register vote. We'll be back after the break with Texas Transparency Project.
Have you ever met a single person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No, no one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice for you. This service is strictly limited to individuals that owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes. And if you qualify, we can guarantee that you won't be writing a big fat check to the IRS, or our services cost you nothing. The first 100 people that call today will get a free tax consultation worth $500. Stop worrying about your IRS problem. We can help you, we promise. Call the tax doctor right now. I mean right now, to learn more.
800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. 800-240-4587. That's 800-240-4587.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Welcome back to the Texas Transparency Project. We're here with candidate Helen Kerwin, running for Texas House District 58. She's got two other. She's got the incumbent, Representative Burns, and Mr. Lyndon Laird. Early voting is on the 5th, and voting day is on March 7th. And we've just got done talking border security in your intro, and now we're gonna get into the second point on your platform, which is educational freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So the Texas Republicans decided to make some form of school choice a priority. The three solutions being discussed a lot are school choice, school vouchers, and education savings accounts, or ESAs. What are the differences between those three things?
Well, school choice, of course, involves the family being able to pull their student out of the school that they live in, the zip code in their district, and be able to put them in another school. They could actually leave the county or another school in the county. I do support that. I do support the families being able to be part of that. In our district has good schools. We have A schools.
Your district is top of Johnson County.
Well, and there's other A's,
Yeah.
Grandview, and our district has good schools. So saying that, I don't think the impact would be as devastating as the media has put out. And remembering too, it's only going to affect 1% of our 5 million students in Texas. 45,000 students, and it's prioritized. They are going to focus on the disadvantaged and the inner cities, and those are the kids it's kind of designed for.
So I homeschool my kids, or they go to a homeschool co-op. So they have 3 days where they get core education, then we do the rest on our own. And I get nervous when I hear an equity-based allotment like this. So how do you make somebody like me comfortable that I won't lose, or individuals that are still in the public school system comfortable when they start talking about allocating this to disadvantaged? And does that make sense?
Well,
so what did you say right before this?
Well, the applications will go through the comptroller's office.
Okay.
And they will prioritize towards inner city schools, disadvantaged students.
So does that mean they're going to prioritize what schools you can leave from or go to?
Just the application process, which will qualify them for the ESA, for the Educational Savings Account.
Okay. So
And
that's the ESA. That's not voucher.
No.
And that's not trust. Okay. All right. So I'm new to this
Yeah.
this topic, so I'm trying to figure it out. What about vouchers? So you talked choice. What about vouchers? Now that's what HB1 was voucher system. Is that correct?
Well, the ESA was
That's
a big
ESA.
part.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Of-
Okay. So
of-
what's vouchers?
well, vouchers is a certain amount too for the student. For example, if they want to go to a private school, the high performing, I believe it's $10,500, and the basic for the ESAs is $6,700. And so it depends on the student and the school to determine how much that would be.
Okay. And then it would be up to the parents to pick up the rest. And
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly.
If it's more.
And these accounts are, I mean, they qualify for all educational material, curriculum, supplies, and it isn't that they can never take that money and use it for anything else other than their children's education.
Okay.
A lot of people thought that, the money's leaving and where's it going? And it's strict criteria. There's accountability.
Well, I know when I was down in Austin, they were kicking around different plans, and I want to say that one of them was being talked about. You could get the education savings account and save it for college, which sounds good, but that's not that roll of money, so to speak,
No.
necessarily.
No.
So, I mean, they've had so many different versions.
Yeah. But
so
we law in District 58, can I go into this? Some of the stats? And,
yeah, sure.
Okay. Not only the empowering of the parents, but I also in the bill, and it's 200 pages long. So I think a lot of people didn't read all the way to the end, where it actually does say that your property taxes will not be affected by this. Not 1 cent of property taxes will go to the ESA savings account. So I think it's important for them to know that this will be supported by the general revenue, oil and gas revenue, sales tax. And I think that fear the knowledge needs to get out there that it is not going to affect their property taxes.
So one of my concerns with this is creep.
Is what?
Is creep, what I call creep.
Creep.
Legislative creep.
Oh, okay.
Legislative creep. That's
It's
the
a
term,
new one.
right? So,
all right. What is that?
So like they're going to limit it to, I believe, 50,000 students the
Right.
first year and stuff like that. So
Right.
I worry about this increasing over time.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Mhm.
next year it'll be 75, and it'll just continue to go up. And eventually it'll be such a large behemoth that you'll have. So you currently have school districts that are operating on an M&O budget,
Mhm.
and they have bond debt.
Mhm.
So, for example, Godly ISD just had a bond shot down for $889 million. So let's say that bond,
What was that for?
that's a great question. They have about 3,000 students, 808. That's a great question.
Wow. Well, bonds,
889
that's
million.
a very, very sensitive topic. I'm a firm believer in curriculum, classroom, teachers. I think a lot of money, most of the money needs to go. And
Mhm.
I understand the M&O budget. That is over 60% of your property taxes are from that M&O budget. So I fully support more transparency in that budget.
Well, if you meet with Godly ISD, ask them what that bond was for. So
Yeah,
it'd be
yeah.
interesting to know. They're calling another one for 354 this year.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're big money. Yeah.
Well, we just had $1 million playground built in Glenrose on a campus.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So House Bill 1 was recently defeated in a special session called by Governor Abbott. There's a lot of horsepower to pass some form. I think you talked about what you support, but what are your drop dead? This has to be in there. This can't be in there. What's your drop dead things to support some form of ESA voucher thing? Or it was at HB1 as it was written, or does it need changes?
well, I think there needs to be, and this is why it may be the best thing that it did. I don't know, but I'm thinking if, and of course it will come back, that it may be a much better bill.
What would make it better?
Well, There is, from what I understand, 100 new positions created for TEA. And in my mind, that's more government. I'm very limited government, especially in our schools. So that is something that I would certainly like to address.
Let me ask you a question. And this may be a tough question. TEA, like Texas has independent school districts, and it's meant to be locally governed. And it seems that TEA, and are you familiar with TASB and TASA?
No, I'm not.
So Texas Association of School Administrators, Texas Association of School Boards, Texas Association of School Administrators is supposed to manage the administrators. Board is supposed to manage the board. The board oversees and manages the superintendent, yet they collectively work together for a common good. And I have a big problem with that.
I do too.
I have a big, so, and
I
then
do too.
and then TEA is a big government entity. And these three work together to drive from centralized Austin. So would you support some reforms or elimination of TASA, TASB, or at least delineating lines?
I would like to author a bill because I have seen how the administration becomes so top heavy in the school districts. I have seen 20-year teachers that are not quite ready for retirement that go into the admin building for their last years. I see lobbyists, I've heard of them in Austin, come from the educators, and it's like they just circle back and they just circle back. So yes.
Yeah. So before we move on, TASA and TASB work together and they do what's called the Team of 8 training. And most districts do it behind closed doors in a closed meeting. It's where the superintendent and the school board collaboratively work together. And it's in my opinion, as open government, that is bad business. That's bad business. And I'm not expecting you to know the fine details of that.
No, but
you will if you get elected, because
conceptually, that is something that I am just as much against as you. So I would be very happy to, if I get to Austin, take that on.
So what steps can be taken to preserve the small town rural feel so many love and move to Johnson County for, and offer the greatest opportunity for everyone regarding educational freedom? So a lot of people are moving here for a certain feel, and all this kind of stuff, it makes people worry, like a $889 million bond, right?
I know.
So how do you mitigate that?
Two things. I think number one, on the bond, you've got to be educated. You've got to vote. You've got to get your passionate parents to be educated about that, because they don't always go to the school board meetings. They're too busy. And the school boards are not responsible for informing the parents, what's on the agenda. I know it's posted, but you have to go up to the building. So I think a lot of that does fall on the citizens too.
Well, and when your kids are in a school, it's hard to be critical. It just is.
Yeah.
It's very difficult and uncomfortable to be critical when your kids are sitting in a school for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's brutal.
And I think the other thing is, it's so important that we keep conservative values by voting conservatively, so that we can protect our Texas schools so they don't turn into places of indoctrination. They are for education only. They need the basic education in the classrooms. We have 58%, I think, are not even on grade level in math, and it's less than 50% in our district in English.
Do you know that they have a category? They had to create a new category called approaching the standard, and that's considered passing. I look at my kids were approaching when they were born.
Exactly.
They should. That's garbage.
It's garbage. Lowering the bar.
Yeah, it's garbage.
Lowering the bar. Oh, that's what I got excited about in HB1. If I can just bring this up, one of the features was that high performing teachers, which number one, to even recognize high performing teachers to me is wonderful.
Yes.
Competition.
Merit-based.
And exactly, merit-based. They can earn potentially 6-figure salaries, high performing. But here's the neat thing about that is that when they reach that, they actually qualify. And if they want, they can be a mentor to apprentices, to beginning teachers. Now, how is that? How great is that? To raise the bar of excellence in our schools.
Anything merit-based, I'm for.
Yeah.
I mean,
especially
line.
in the schools, which we really haven't had.
Nope. So quickly, because we're getting behind here, but topics like critical race theory, transgender ideology, social emotional learning, and other issues, they don't resonate here in Texas. How do you feel about that stuff and keeping that out of schools?
We just ban them.
You just ban them?
Just ban them.
So
there's no negotiation on that.
Okay, there is massive. So in HB1 community schools, so in HB1 it was pushing community schools, I believe it's called, and it was $50,000 and that's beginning to drive down that road. So
that the term community school there, I don't know about. I'm thinking of more public education.
Okay, so HB1 gave an allocation of $50,000 to public schools that dove into this community schools. It's kind of classification, and it brings a lot more services into school, and they always come with red herrings. So that's a really one to watch. And then those are the kinds of things that creep.
Yeah.
A lot of the education vendors, 80% of it's good, and then there's always those poison pills in there, and it's really scary.
Yeah.
And I think we have a big lobbying problem in education. Big lobbying problem. There's so much money to be made in curriculum, but STAR going online, and with STAR going online, there was another bill called 1605, and it passed in a form where it's voluntary. They tried to pass it mandatory. It was going to mandate 240 minutes of online education, K through 5.
Oh.
And I mean, the thought process, you're going to online STAR, you got to teach them online, but that's so the poison pill on that, right? So it seems like, well, we're testing online, we got to teach online. Well, the poison pill is the curriculum was copyrighted, so parents lost access. So in the bill, it says parents have access to online digital curriculum, but then down below it says, but if it's copyrighted, it doesn't apply. And everything's copyrighted that companies do. So that's another bill, but these are things to watch out for.
It's a swamp.
It is.
It's a swamp.
It's an absolute swamp. It absolutely is. It is, and it's a big deal.
Maybe the first thing to do, and I tried this, but I don't know. I'm a firm believer in term limits.
Oh, there you go.
I campaigned for Ted Cruz in 2016. And that was one of the things we were discussing, but it's impossible.
So I'll put you on the spot. So the 31-year district attorney, his terms out. I won't ask you to answer that. I won't ask you to answer that. So HB1, so HB1 being paid for, it creates so there's another thing too. So it had a lot of money going to other entities. Like in the first year, 3% was going 15, which was $15 million was going to go to the comptroller's office, and 5%, 25 million to vendors. So how do you square that up? Because here again, that 500 million surplus is going to go away, and then it's going to come out of. I think eventually it's going to creep to property tax. Unfortunately, we'll disagree on that.
Well,
I worry about that, but
there's
how
every other year session, so there's always everything. Every law can be changed.
Sure.
So that's one thing to keep in mind. If that ever happens, we address it at the ballot box. But
loose legislation causes problems, and it's a lot of times it's not the legislative intent, it's how it's applied locally, more convenient. And that's a local problem, but how do you feel about those issues?
The comptroller's 3% is simply, I think, because they are going to be overseeing the application process and, of course, the distribution of the ESAs. So that is for their new job description, so to speak. Now, what worries me is the vendors, and I don't know enough about the inside of that culture in Austin yet. I do think the vendors are out of control, and I think that's got to be addressed. But I don't know exactly how much of that amount goes where within that vendor culture. So I'd have to get back to you on that, and I will.
No worries. Yeah, I appreciate it. Vendors are a big problem.
Big problem.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I know my campaign. I have vendors. I've never had vendors before. And I'm a zero budget person. Back when I was mayor, I made all the departments start at zero every year. And these vendors just came in and said, well, this is what you pay for mailers, and this is what you pay for yard signs. And I said, no. Price per, and we build it as we go.
Good for you.
Yeah. So vendors
Yeah, we
are
need to
an
get
issue.
we need to get a tight control on this. So some other issues with HB1 that brought up a $4,000 teacher pay raise.
Mhm.
And I'm for teacher pay, but I
Mhm.
believe that should be done in the existing M&O budget. Personally, I don't know if that should come from Austin. I don't know enough about where that was coming from, but here again, anytime you see dollars
Mhm.
across the state, you think people
Mhm.
are going to be paying more. 30, and then in the first year it was $32.7 million allocated to just Johnson County. This is just Johnson County schools, and 88 million in fiscal year 24. So in multiple campaign stops, you brought up $120 million.
Mhm. Mhm.
So where you're saying that money is not going to come from property tax, it's going to come from the general fund and oil and gas.
Oil and gas revenue and sales tax.
So playing devil's advocate here,
Mhm.
how does that not involve us paying more for oil and gas, paying more for sales tax, and increased taxes in the general fund? I mean, you talked about being zero budget. How do we square this?
Well, I think that it's better, isn't it, than having your property taxes are already 60 to 70% coming out of the M&O for the schools. So here it is distributed among 3 different parts of the budget.
But doesn't that still affect the day-to-day consumer, the day-to-day resident?
That they may be paying more in sales tax, or that, but that is sales tax is voluntary.
Correct.
You purchase it and you pay it, and that of course is up to you.
Correct.
It's not
correct.
assessed.
It's like a VAT, and a lot of people are for VAT and consumption taxes.
So the fact that
those kind of taxes
it's not assessed, I think that would, that would be fine.
Well, you control it instead of the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. That's a whole nother animal.
Well, I have good news about the appraisal district, the CADs, in our last legislative session. This said legislative session. This is awesome for conservatives. Instead of the board members all being appointed, 3 of them are now going to be elected, which I think is just
that's
great.
Is.
So we got a good conservative.
Have you met Craig Hunley? Have you talked to Craig Hunley yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, we need to get you in touch with him. He's a local property tax guru, and he worked for 4.5 years to get to. Do you know how the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors, and no one knew this until Craig Hunley got involved, how they're elected? Central Appraisal,
how they're appointed.
Central Appraisal District Board of Directors are elected, or they're allocated votes.
Exactly.
So by the taxing entities. So he went to all the taxing entities for years and developed relationships, and he got them and introduced them to people that explained how they were going to streamline the transparency. And 3 of his 4 candidates got elected by the local taxing entities here in Johnson County.
That's awesome.
It is.
Good for him.
Yes, and I'll give you his
and
information.
He's in Burles? Yeah, I would love.
He's he's going to kill me. Grandview or Glen Rose? Which one's farther out east, out past Alvarado?
Well, east is Glen Rose.
He's in Glen
very
Rose,
far.
yeah.
Well, no, west is Glen Rose. Grandview would be.
Oh,
east.
he's
Sorry.
Grandview. I'm sorry.
Okay.
He's. I get the 2 confused. I'm not a native Texan. I'm so sorry.
So, well, we're glad you got here.
I got here as quick as I could. That's what everybody told me to say.
Yeah.
So, here's another thing that concerns me with HB1. Pre-kindergarten community-based child care partnerships grants. Talking about putting pre-K early as 3 into schools. Now, so here again, I was talking about legislative creep earlier. So the Biden administration's already said that they want to mandate pre-K and the first 2 years of college as public education. So where's this kind of funding going to come from?
As far
is that the same out of the general fund?
The 3-year.
Yeah, that's basically close to 2 years of extra school.
Well, it's almost like daycare.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're 3, they don't need to be, in a controlled environment.
True.
Yeah. I'm going to have to look into that.
Fair enough. Here again, thank you for no. There's a lot of fine details.
Well, I've kind of honed in on the ESAs and the 121 million we lost here.
No, and I'm not meaning to stump you. No, it's fine.
But I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. No, I appreciate it.
But I do disagree. It's awfully young.
and it's called Community in Schools. That's the financial incentive with the massive expansion. Just so you have it. If you want to look into that too. And then,
Okay.
here's another thing. We talked about TEA. Do you know that and I just found this out recently. They're allowed to solicit gifts, donations, and grants and gratuities from vendors and stuff like that. And I think that's a horrible problem.
Is that new?
It's in HB1. Yeah, they're allowed to solicit it. Yeah. And that's scary. That's scary.
That's very scary. And I'll
That's
look into
scary.
that.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it will come around again in the next session. And I think that maybe with this amount of time and with the discussion in the election cycles, that it's a good thing that
Sure.
we can tweak it and we can get some of these more liberal leaning. And maybe that was part of the negotiation, but they shouldn't be there.
No,
They
absolutely
shouldn't
not.
be there.
Yeah, absolutely
So
not.
thank you for that.
Yes, absolutely not. And nobody will be for that. Other than
No,
the vendors and the
and
people
I-
that are getting kickbacks. and
Like I
stuff.
say, I think we have enough time to discuss it and throw it around and get it crafted to be a much, much better bill.
Sure. So we're going to go through property taxes real quick here. We're really short on time.
Okay.
So Craig Hunley's group, I'm going to throw him a shout out because he's done so much brilliant work here in Johnson County.
Okay.
It's Texan nonpartisan political group from the Horse Barn Property Tax Reform. I'll give it to you. Facebook group. He has a cool story of how he came up with it, but it's ballooned to over 8,000 members.
Okay.
And he's really worked hard. So would you support? It sounds like you would support 100% of the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors being elected by the people.
Absolutely. That's what
Okay.
we're all about. That's why
Okay.
I'm a conservative.
Okay.
Yeah. Less government with representatives.
Okay. That's
I mean,
good to
you need to be
hear.
elected by your citizens.
And here again, property taxes are a major concern. A lot of people being taxed. Generational property is being taxed out of families. And it's great that they do the senior citizen exemption, but when it's given to their families, they get a huge hit. What do you foresee that a Helen Kerwin term could do on pushing property tax reform and how to mitigate some of that?
Well, I think number one, they did in this last session, they did raise the homestead to 100, which I thought was excellent.
Well, sure, if they don't take it out somewhere else. So hopefully they won't do that.
Well, right.
but
Because the other
that's-
side of the coin is then they, evaluate your property for a different amount. So I agree with that. But then again, we have 3 elected people on the CAD board, which helps a little.
Correct.
But the amount that we saw reduced by the last legislative session was not 18 billion. It was actually 12. And then they took
What are you referring to? 18 billion, 12?
the decrease in property taxes
Okay.
that we got.
Oh, that the revenue coming in from property taxes.
No,
or-
the amount of property taxes, the decrease in the Texans got.
Oh, I'm sorry. The savings to the homeowner or the property owner.
Well, it was the decrease in property taxes.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is actually was 12.5, not 18.1. They used some numbers from the 2019
Okay.
tax relief. But what I think needs to be done is, of course, and I know you throw this word around, but I'm such a believer in budget transparency. And I think that is something that has to be done on a local level and a state level. We have to get our budgets under control.
Give us your website one more time.
HelenKerwin.com.
HelenKerwin.com. Don't forget to vote. Thanks for joining the Texas Transparency Project. It goes quick, I told you.
It does. Thank you.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith